Hey everybody, how's it going? Thanks for joining me this afternoon. I am Auron MacIntyre. I hope you had a fantastic Thanksgiving, enjoyed your long weekend. Hopefully you're escaping that leftover coma. But we, of course, didn't just have good times, sadly, this holiday. As people were recovering from the Thanksgiving weekend, we had a terror attack in Washington, D.C. It was awful. Obviously, two National Guardsmen have been shot. One has died. The other is still in critical condition. And this has led to a number of different simultaneous threads coming to the forefront from different Democrats calling for American troops to rebel against Donald Trump, to initiate treason. They have involved themselves in sedition. We also have a number of Democrats threatening to throw Pete Hegseth in jail over his attacks on Venezuelan drug boats, claiming that they will definitely put him in jail as soon as that is an opportunity. And we also have several different prominent leftists coming out and talking about how white culture is over. It deserves to be replaced. It's lame. It's stupid. All of these things might seem like separate issues, but I think they actually weave themselves into a story about where we are going as a nation. One of the things that I try to do is bring these disparate threads together in the narrative and kind of try to show the way that I think things are being manipulated, advanced, move forward right now. And I think this is one of those key situations where if we dive in, we can see how these otherwise seemingly disconnected events are actually directly connected and are driving us in a particular direction. So I want to dive into all of that today. And I want to start with, of course, the attack in Washington, D.C. Like I said, two National Guardsmen were shot by an Afghan national. One of the persons shot was a 20-year-old woman who volunteered for the National Guard. To put that in perspective, the war in Afghanistan started before she was born, and she was killed because of it, basically. The guy who killed her was an Afghan national who had served in the Afghan army, was, of course, a part of a CIA-trained unit, was brought into the United States under this false pretense that everyone who in some way worked with the United States should be allowed into the United States after the war in Afghanistan ended. And she is dead very directly from a result of that war. So even after the war that started before she was born ended, it still came back to the United States. The entire purpose of that war was to say that we have to fight them over there so we don't have to fight them over here. And now, because of that war, a service member is dead on American soil because of a Muslim terror attack initiated by somebody who was brought in under the Biden administration because we were involved with that war in Afghanistan. So let's take a look at this article from Fox News real quick. It gives us some updates on what's happening with the Afghan refugee at this moment. Advocate warned Afghan evacuee was not functional as a person months before the National Guard shooting. Emails show, and I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce this piece of trash's name, but it said he's quit his job and stopped responding to family before the DC shooting. So we already have warning signs. This guy should have never been here. He should have never been in the country. But even though he was in the country, and we knew he used to be part of a foreign military force, and we knew that he was a danger to himself and others, he was allowed to continue to operate inside the United States and inevitably did violence to Americans on American soil. So reading into this, it says the Afghan man accused of shooting two National Guardsmen last week has been mentally declining for years, according to emails reviewed by the Associated Press that detailed long stretches of isolation, escalating instability, and sudden cross-country trips that preceded the attack blocks from the White House. The AP reported that the 29-year-old had drawn concerns for months, with interviews and recordings showing him dropping out of work, slipping into long periods of silence, and taking abrupt trips ahead of the shooting. One email cited that by the AP warned that he had not been fully functional as a person, father, and provider since March of last year, describing how he quit his job, shut himself in a dark room for days and stopped responding even to his wife and older children. The email shows that an advocate feared he might harm himself, but said they never saw signs suggesting he would become violent towards others. Well, that person is an idiot. This should have been obvious. We should have known this man's background. They should know why he's in the country, because he used to be part of a foreign army, because this guy is someone who has been involved in war, who was brought in because he was basically betrayed his people to join some squad in Afghanistan, and then got brought over here because it was too dangerous for him to live in Afghanistan anymore. So of course, just bring him to the United States. I'm sure he'll just figure it out. And of course he didn't. He didn't assimilate. He didn't do well. He started breaking down, and rather than having this raise a ton of flags, because guy from a part of the world that produces a lot of terrorists who used to be an armed combatant is in the US, falling into depression, cutting himself off, spinning out on his own in dark rooms, not contacting everybody, quitting his job. It's okay. It's fine. Don't worry about it. Don't want to be racist. Don't want to be racist or anything. And here we are. Back to the story. It says the emails also describe how he alternated between periods of dark isolation and reckless travel, including trips to Chicago, Arizona, and eventually Washington, D.C. before the shooting. Remember, this was just a few blocks away from the White House. The swing reportedly intensified as he abandoned English classes, so gave up on assimilating at all, drifted in and out of short-term jobs, and left his children arriving at school unbathed or wearing the same clothes for days. So he probably should have already been under arrest. Child Protective Services should have taken custody of the children. He should probably be in jail. But as somebody who taught in schools in the United States for a long time, let me tell you that there is very, very, very little you can do to get people like this arrested. There's very little that the state will do, especially if they aren't American. If they speak another language, if they're a minority, if they're an immigrant, it is incredibly difficult to get CPS to go in there because, again, they don't want to be accused of racism. They'll say, oh, well, it's a different standard for the way that they raise their children. They don't understand the language, something. There's always an excuse. This guy should have been setting off red flags left and right. Instead, he was allowed to stay in the country, neglect his children, and murder American soldiers. In one email cited by the AP, the advocate wrote that attempts to correct course over time quickly evolved into manic episodes for 1 or 2 weeks at a time, where he would take off in the family car, drive nonstop, leaving his wife to repeatedly manage the fallout. And here you see, sadly, a picture of Sarah Beckstorm, who's 20 years old, again, killed in basically a war that she was too young to have even been born during, when it first started, and was dead because the effects followed back to the United States where she was serving. Staff from the U.S. Committee for Refugees and Immigrants visited Bellingham in March 2024 after receiving the warnings, but the AP reported that the effort led to no meaningful contact and left the advocate believing he declined the organization's help. Authorities say that his deterioration culminated the night before Thanksgiving when he allegedly opened fire near the White House, killing West Virginia National Guard specialist Sarah Beckenstorm of 20 and critically injuring Staff Sergeant Andrew Wolf of 24. He is still in critical condition as of me researching for the show. The shooting stunned Washington and raised new questions about how concerns stretching back more than a year failed to prompt intervention. You notice that this is a constant theme, right? The FBI knew, they were aware, the government were new, they were aware. All the social safety nets that were supposed to be checking in on these people, that are supposed to be vetting them, that are supposed to be monitoring them, that are supposed to make sure that they're taking care of them, they all knew, but they just don't do anything. They just don't take action, right? The FBI, led by Kash Patel, continues to examine potential motives, and investigators may have not confirmed an ideological influence, according to the AP. I don't know, guys. I got a few guesses. I could name one or two. Before arriving in the U.S. in 2021 under Operation Allies Welcome, whatever his name is, served in the Zero Unit of the Afghan Army, a force backed by, you guessed it, the CIA. Why does the CIA still exist, guys? Why does it still exist? Because it blackmails all of our politicians is the answer, right? Otherwise, they're terrible at their job and they get Americans killed all the time. Advocates working with Afghan evacuees said former members of those units carried deep drama for years of conflict, also because they were probably seen as traitors in their own country. You don't actually want to bring people who fight for your country against their own country into your country. That's not actually what you want to do. You should recognize that even if you are willing to have their help as co-belligerents in any given conflict, the kind of person who would turn on their own people just for a meal ticket back to the United States is not the kind of person you actually want to add to the United States. Traitors aren't exactly your friends. Though it remains unclear whether the history played a role in his behavior in the U.S. Advocates who sought to help him spoke under the condition of anonymity and told the AP they were shocked to learn he was a suspect, recalling moments when he played gently with a young son despite his mounting problems at home. Yeah, actually, just not immediately, like, I guess, throwing your son out a window doesn't mean you're a model of mental health. That's not actually an indication of you being a good human being who is not going to hurt other people. Also, the reaction to this whole shooting was horrific. Okay, the reaction was absolutely insane. So, in a lot of ways, it reminded me of the Charlie Kirk assassination. Right, first it's the shock. First, it's the, oh, I can't believe this violence was done. How horrible. But it only took the left a few minutes this time, only a few minutes. And then it turns out it wasn't this piece of trash terrorist's fault from Afghanistan. Guess whose fault it was? What was it? Was it Joe Biden's fault for bringing this guy in? Nope. Was the Democrats' fault for advocating for mass immigration and not thoroughly vetting people? By the way, over 100,000 Afghans were let in under this program. 100,000. A good-sized city's worth of Afghans were brought in and are currently in the United States in this under this program. There is no way those people were vetted. And even if they were, if any of them were vetted, it's probably the guy who was in the CIA unit. Okay? If any of these people, any of these immigrants were vetted, it was the guy who was in the CIA camp. And he still murdered one guardsman, shot another who's in critical condition. Please pray. Obviously, hopefully, the body count is not going to be 2. But this man should have never been in the country. Obviously. He made it through the vetting process of the CIA and then shot 2 American soldiers. There is zero reason for any of these people to be in my country, and they need to go now. They need to be deported immediately. I don't care who. I don't care what judge says what. I want them out of my country. Every last one of them. They do not belong here. They do not get some free ticket into this country because they decided to flee their own crap hole. They don't get to come here, and they don't get to shoot American soldiers. Everyone involved in this should be in jail. The people who let this man into the country should be in jail. They are accessories to this murder. They enabled the murder of American soldiers on American soil. This is insane. There is no reason for this to continue. This is madness. And guess what? Guess whose fault it is for the left? Donald Trump. Why? Well, if Donald Trump hadn't put National Guardsmen on the sidewalk of Washington, D.C., they wouldn't have been there to be shot. That's the argument that we're getting from the left. The National Guardsmen, their skirts were just too short. Their clothes were too revealing. If they hadn't been in that alleyway, they wouldn't have been assaulted. American soldiers can't be in the United States and not expect to get shot by foreign terrorists. What a ridiculous expectation. Also, you want to make an argument to me that we shouldn't have National Guardsmen on the streets of Washington, D.C.? Having people committing terrorism is actually not a good argument. Because guess what? More troops prevents terrorism. It does not increase it. So the idea that it's somehow the National Guard's fault or Donald Trump's fault that this insane terrorist piece of garbage murdered a young woman and shot another National Guardsman who is holding on in critical condition. The act that is somehow their fault or Donald Trump's fault or the National Guard's fault is just as insane as the people who are running around saying, well, probably shouldn't have shot Charlie Kirk, but he had it coming. He was a fascist. He did deserve, something bad to happen to him. I wouldn't have shot him. I wouldn't have shot him. But obviously, it happens, right? Like, he kind of had it coming. We cannot live with this in the United States. The left cannot continue to encourage violence, to justify violence, to rationalize violence in the United States. It has to stop. We cannot continue like this. And unfortunately, after this terror attack right before Thanksgiving, it only got worse. Because we have additional people in our country who either want us dead or think that it's fine if people ultimately do want us dead because we kind of deserve it. Here, let me share with you some other choice clips here. So this is a report on an Afghan national from Fox News.
Well, this just in, we have a Fox News alert from Brooke Taylor. You won't believe this. DHS is confirming that an Afghan national was arrested Tuesday after posting a video of himself on TikTok indicating he was building a bomb with an intended target of the Fort Worth area. Mohammed Dawood Al-Okazai is charged at the state level with making a terroristic threat. According to DHS, listen to this. He came to the United States as part of Operation Allies Welcome. So here you have it. This happened Tuesday. Texas Department of...
So another Afghan national let in to the United States because he was working with the Americans who was planning to bomb the Americans. We imported terrorists into the United States on purpose. The Biden administration imported terrorists into the United States on purpose to kill Americans, and then they did. That's it. That's all. Every one of these people needs to go. Not a single one of them should be on American soil at all. Every single one of them needs to go. I don't want to hear excuses. I don't want to hear about the difficulty of the process. I don't want to care about what judge thinks. You can strap that judge onto the same plane, go into the same place for all I care. Get these people out of my country. Get them out of my country now. I do not want them here. They do not believe in the American dream. They do not yearn for freedom. They do not want to assimilate. And even if they did, I wouldn't care. They don't belong here. They don't believe in what we believe. They don't have the same religion. They don't have the same faith. They don't have the same tradition. They don't have the same history.
Public safety.
They don't believe in what we believe in. They should not be here. They are incompatible with our way of life. Different religion, different beliefs, different languages, different customs. And by the way, many of them hate us and want us dead just because we exist. I don't want them here. There is zero reason for them to be here. And yet here we are, flooded with people brought in from a country we specifically said we didn't want people coming from to the United States. Why is there a single visa ever being handed to Afghan? Now, the Trump administration says they are stopping all visas from Afghanistan. Great, I guess. Should have been done a long time ago. Glad it's done now. Certainly better than not. But what are we doing here? Why were we letting anyone from Afghanistan into this country? How is one more Afghan going to make this country better? I don't care. That National Guard troop's life, that woman's life, is worth more than every single one of these foreigners brought into my country combined. She should not have been shot. He should not have been here. It is absolutely insane that this continues to be the case. Now, on top of this discussion are two things, and I want you to keep them in your mind because we're kind of floating all this simultaneously. So first, we have these attacks on military and what the Democrats have been encouraging. So if you have not been following the story, the Democrats have been encouraging sedition by our troops. They've been encouraging them to refuse orders from the President of the United States. And they have been threatening that if the troops do not refuse the orders of the lawfully elected commander-in-chief, they will be arrested and charged once Democrats hold power again. That's going to be important. That's fact number one. Fact number two, we are seeing a justification of the Great Replacement in the United States, and they are not even hesitating anymore. They are explicitly championing the demographic replacement of America's current stock by bringing in third worlders. And one of the things that has sparked this has been Donald Trump saying, actually, we don't need any more third worlders in the United States, and we're going to remove their ability to immigrate here. Because a lot of people have seen the scams being run by several immigrant communities, including the Somalian community, which is now famous for scamming the American public by faking the idea that their children have autism. And then once they get through this process of getting their children given a fake autism evaluation and getting that assigned, they then reap all the benefits. They get all the benefits of having an autism diagnosis. That is insane. Personally, knowing people, children who do have autism diagnosis, the idea that their money, the money that should be going to help them, actual Americans who really have autism, the fact that their money is being stolen from them to fund these these horrible lying communities who are scamming the American people is gross and disgusting. So that has come to the attention of the Trump administration. They've said, we are going to put an end to that. Now, I certainly hope that's true, but I got to say, I'm a little doubtful about the speed at which that's going to occur, because right now we've had very serious problems with the follow through on some of the immigration stuff. Yes, it's better than anything we had under Biden. I want to just do my reminder. Okay. Trump administration, best administration we've had on immigration in my lifetime. They shut the border down. They're deporting people, but it's just not fast enough. It's not that they're not trying to do the right thing, but the fact is that at least 8 million illegals came in under Biden, and we are not even close to deporting 8 million illegals. The best numbers the Trump administration is coming up with is something like I think it's like 600,000 or 700,000 physically deported, and then they expect another like 2 to 3 million have self-deported if you're believing those numbers. And that's a good start, but we have to hit at least 8 million just to undo the damage of the last 4 years. Just to undo that damage. Not counting all the other illegal immigrants that were already here before Biden, just to get rid of the immigrants that were here or that were brought in under Joe Biden. We need to see triple, quadruple the level of deportations and self-deportations that we are currently seeing. So I'm praising the Trump administration for shutting down the border. I'm praising them for doing the deportations. Again, things that we would never have discussed under Kamala Harris or even like a George W. Bush. But it's still not enough. It's good, but it's not sufficient. We need more. Because if we don't stop this, things are only going to get worse. And I will be playing for you the evidence of how these things are going to get worse. So keep these threads in your mind as we go through these different stories. I want to point out how this is all connected. So here is Stephen Miller laying out the Great Replacement, laying out the very process I have explained on my show several times over. This will sound familiar to you. I'm very glad to hear a guy like Stephen Miller laying out exactly what is happening here.
Is it for your audience perfectly, Sean? This was not a loophole. The Biden administration, Secretary of Homeland Security, Alejandro Mayorkas, devised a scheme to fly illegal aliens into the country and then to escort them en masse across the border by the millions and to give them something known as parole, which gives them a work permit, which gives them a social security number, which gives them access to the voting booth. This was the plan all along, to get them here illegally so they can get free government benefits, get hooked to welfare, and be able to participate in American elections. This was an attack on democracy by the Democrat Party. It's the same attack that we see, Sean, when you have California, a sanctuary state, that is refusing to turn over even illegal alien criminals and gang members to ICE. So these are illegal aliens in California who have been arrested by California police, by California law enforcement for serious crimes, for crimes against children, for felonies, for crimes that threaten public safety and they are refusing to hand these criminal illegal aliens over to ICE. Instead, they're freeing them back into the cities to offend and offend again.
So Miller laying out again the process that we've talked about this on the show many times over. Maybe you heard about it here, probably already knew about it. Point is, either way, this is the plan of the Democratic Party. Demographic replacement of the American stock is the plan in order to manipulate elections in the democracy. When you have a democratic system, it's really easy to hack. If you leave the borders open, if you allow people to come in, it's very simple for the people in charge to manipulate who's coming into the country and who's getting citizenship and who's getting the right to vote so that they can manipulate the electoral outcomes. I'm not a big fan of democracy, you know that. But if you're going to operate one, you can't operate it with open borders. You can't operate it bringing in a ton of people. Because the whole idea of the democracy is that it represents the beliefs and will of the people and that the popular sovereignty is supposed to guide the politicians. So if instead of the popular sovereignty guiding the politicians can create and manufacture popular sovereignty in their favor, then they can control the entire system. And Stephen Miller's just laying it out plain. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is not some weird internet idea. This is the plan of the Democratic Party. This is what they want. This is their political strategy. Your replacement has a purpose. These people from Afghanistan are here for a reason. These people from Somalia are here for a reason. They're here to replace you. They're here to vote for Democrats and make sure that the Democratic Party never loses power and that you become a minority in your country so that you can never vote your way out of this. They are creating a scenario where the votes no longer matter because they aren't even cast by actual Americans anymore. And Stephen Miller is just laying it out plain. So it's not like the Trump administration doesn't understand what's going on here. This is an existential problem, guys. This is not addressing percentages on tax policy. This is not, I don't know if tariffs are economically beneficial. This is the people of your country are being replaced to make sure that they can never have an influence on their government again and that you become a one-party state entirely buoyed by the devotion of immigrants who hate Americans coming into the United States and taking control of the political apparatus. To the point where these people will commit terror. They will plan to bomb you. They will shoot you in the streets. And the Democrats will say it's your fault. If the National Guard hadn't been there, they wouldn't have been shot. If Charlie Kirk hadn't been against immigration, he wouldn't have deserved to catch a bullet. These are the arguments made by the left. All of this stupid distraction about, interviews and group chats somewhere on the right. Somewhere someone said a naughty no-no word, conservative land. So we have to spend months after the death of Charlie Kirk attacking that, instead of focusing on the fact that the left is actively trying to kill you and replace you in your own country. This is where we spent all our time and energy. And now look what has happened. I don't have time for anyone telling me that I need to spend more time worrying about jokes made in a group chat or an interview somewhere online than I do about this. I'm done. I'm done with these people. They are dead to me. They are not part of my movement. I don't want anything to do with them. If you're running around spending all your time, hair on fire, screaming about naughty words said somewhere in a group chat that were never supposed to see the light of day, while we have this stuff going on, you're just on the wrong side of it, and you're just a waste of time. This is what matters. This is the only thing that matters. This is the future of the country. This is the safety of your children. This is the continuation of your history. You address this, or the country drowns. That's it. And it'll drown slowly. Don't worry. Nothing ever happens, bros. It'll always be a small enough event to where you can pretend like it's not a big deal. That it's not really making a difference. But it is. The grains of sand add up. The straws stack up on the camel's back. And when you continually see the same thing over and over and over again, You have to recognize that you are heading to the destination, whether it's at 1,000 miles an hour or 100 miles an hour. Either way, when you get there, the edge of the cliff is going to be bad. So waiting until you get to the very edge of the cliff and saying, oh, well, I guess something did happen today, that's stupid. Something is happening now. It needs to stop. So let's look at a few more ways in which the Democratic Party is currently conducting itself. So, like I said, we're carrying this narrative that it's okay to replace the people of the United States. Here's a sitting senator, Mark Kelly, former astronaut from Arizona. This is one of the guys who's been encouraging the American troops to commit treason. What does he have to say about the demographic replacement of Americans?
When I heard the secretary say that they're going to pause immigration from third world countries, I mean, I take that as a message that they don't want brown people coming to the United States. And I find that disturbing. We are a country that has always welcomed individuals that are struggling, that are fleeing famine and violence. And it would be a fundamental change to the fabric of our nation to change that.
Okay, so first, that's a complete lie. That's a complete and total lie. That is not the history of the United States. The United States is not the plaque on the Statue of Liberty, okay? That is not actually the way that the United States has worked the entire time. Ellis Island is not the definition of the United States. Sorry, it's not. In fact, several times over, the liberals will tell you that actually we rejected so many peoples. We didn't take every Jewish person during the Holocaust. So therefore, America has the blood guilt of the entire Holocaust. And we'll hear that exact narrative from guys like Kelly. And then they'll turn around and say, actually, no, the America has always accepted every person who's ever wanted to come here because they were sick or had famine or whatever in their own country, were in danger in their own country. No, we haven't. That's not true. It's not a fundamental change to say, actually, we're going to put our nation first. That is not a change in our American tradition. You know, it is a change in the American tradition, specifically making sure that we only import as many people from the third world as possible. Because here's the quiet part. Here's the negative space of Kelly's argument. And we always get this with the left, right? The implication is we need more diversity. What does more diversity mean? Fewer white people. Right? It's not more diverse. When he says we need more diversity, he doesn't mean Afrikaners from South Africa. The left flipped out when the Trump administration said that they were going to let Afrikaners from South Africa in, because refugees only count if they're a minority. They don't count if they're white. No white person can be a refugee in the progressive framing. So when they say they want more diversity, they don't mean we're going to bring people in from Iceland and Sweden and Finland and Germany. And, no, that's not what they're talking about. They're not talking about bringing more British people to the United States. They mean non-white people. Okay, if you're only favoring bringing in non-white people, then what are you doing? If America is majority white, and then you go out of your way to bring in people from other ethnicities and force out the Americans that are currently living there, or at least dilute their presence, what would you call that in any other situation when you try to replace one ethnos with another on purpose? Because I've been hearing from the left that restricting third world immigration is ethnic cleansing in the United States. Now, of course, that makes no sense because there'd still be plenty of them here. But if you're saying it's ethnic cleansing to deny the third world to come into the United States, if that's a cleansing of that ethnos, then when you bring people into the United States, what are you doing? When you go out of your way to bring large blocks of Somalians or Afghanis into the United States and drop them on a small Midwest town and triple the population overnight with a bunch of people who don't even speak the language or share the culture, what are you doing in that town? Well, you're ethnic cleansing it. So in that negative space from Kelly's argument, we can see that actually what he's arguing for is the ethnic cleansing of this population. We should only be bringing in refugees. We should be letting in all the people from war-torn areas. Well, who tends to be in these war-torn areas? Well, mainly, non-Europeans from the different countries that are highly incompatible. Well, what's that going to do? It's going to destabilize the country. which he's perfectly aware of. And it's what he wants because it allows the Democrats to hold power just as Stephen Miller laid out. It also allows them to increase their authoritarianism because when you have larger gaps in your people, who they are, you have to increase the level of authoritarianism to govern them. I talked about that in my last episode. Here's a guy, a columnist for the New York Times, right? But very famous columnist, big deal, talking about why we need to get rid of these stupid white people we've already
You have lost. You lost. You have lost. You lost. The mistake that you made is you let us in the first place. See, that's the thing with brown people. I'm going to say this as a brown person. There's a lot of us. Like a lot. There's like 1.2 billion in India. There's more than 200 million in Pakistan. There's like 170 million in Bangladesh. Those are just the people there. I'm even talking about the folks who are expats or immigrants. There's a bunch of us. And we breed. We're a breeding people. And the problem is you let us in 1965. There were a few of us beforehand. But once you let one of us in, you know what happens with brown folks? Our grandmother comes, our grandfather comes, our uncle comes, our aunt comes, our cousin comes, our second cousin comes, our third cousin comes. Then we have kids, a bunch of kids. And then guess what? Some white women, you know, the Western civilization women, the pure women, the American women, quote unquote, the Rust Belt women, the real women, they like some of us brown folks. We don't take them. They come to us. So we're embedded. We are everywhere. We are everywhere. I've traveled this country. I'm going to speak as a brown person. Brown people are everywhere. There will be a Patel Motel or there will be a Desi restaurant everywhere. I want you to realize this. You have lost. Your story is a shitty story filled with misery. It's filled with bland chicken. It's filled with terrible, terrible dry ass meat. Your music sucks. All your culture sucks. Nobody. That's why the kids like listen to black people and their music. That's why the kids love Latinos. Your parties suck because they're monochromatic. Our parties have better food, better music, better looking women. You have.
So this guy just comes out and says everything. Look, after 1965, you let too many of us in, and we're just going to come in and breed and replace you because our food's better and our women are prettier, and you're boring, and your music's bad, and we're superior to every way, and we're just going to take your country. And what are you going to do about it? He's not hiding the ball, and this is not some crazy internet kook. I didn't just pull some random Muslim extremist out of somewhere. I didn't just pull some online Indian guy screaming into the sun under his anonymous account about how stupid white people are. This is a guy who writes for the New York Times on a regular basis, shows up on major political platforms, I'm sure influences a number of Democratic politicians. He writes in the New York Times. And he just comes out and says it. This is the plan, man. After 1965, we came in. There's too many of us now. You can't stop it. We're going to outbreed you. We're going to get rid of you. We're going to take over. You can't have your music. It's bad. You can't have your food. It's bad. You can't have your culture. It sucks. We hate your history, and we are replacing you. The end. There's no hiding the ball here. There's no debate. This is not a question of if it's happening or if it's the goal. Stephen Miller knows it's the goal. This guy knows it's the goal. Sorry, I need to pronounce his name. Wajat Ali. Like, all the chips are on the table, guys. There's no questions here. There are no questions here as what is happening. And we're all just sitting here like, well, what are you going to do? I don't know, man. Send them home. End it all. In the immigration. Denaturalize, deport. Let's go. The invasion is here. This is not a question. Okay? It's not a question of what is their strategy? Are they really trying to do this? Are you being paranoid? No. Here is the evidence. I can bring you from the mouths of these people exactly what their plan is. Didn't make it up. Didn't pull it off some alt-right website. It's just what the people in charge, again, not some random guy on the internet. New York Times contributor, major political figure on the left. Just laying the plan out for you as starkly as possible. As did Mark Kelly. Again, Stephen Miller here says, Democratic Party is organized around one essential command. No limits on any kind being placed on the entry of third world immigrants. The failed states of the world must be allowed to empty themselves out into America, and you must pay for their needs forever. Again, great that you know this, Stephen Miller. Fantastic. Now what, man? Now what? Because here's the other problem. The left is specifically sowing sedition inside the military. Here's Mark Kelly talking about why it's important for military members to disobey the president's direct orders, because if they don't, the Democrats will prosecute them when they come into power.
Time. You can certainly go to the judge, advocate generals, the lawyers, and have a discussion about it. If you don't have time, you just say simply, I'm not going to do that. That's against the law.
It puts a lot of burden on the troops to make a decision in real time.
But it's a tremendous amount of burden on officers in the military, but that is their responsibility. And they can figure out, a reasonable person can tell something that is legal and something that is illegal.
So would you refuse these specific orders to strike drug boats if you were still in uniform?
Well, the difference between the initial strike and what is being reported, as a...
So Mark Kelly makes it clear that you, as a United States officer, should deny the orders of the Trump administration, and if you don't, you will be prosecuted by the left. He is telling troops to defy the commander-in-chief, or he will arrest them if he gets power. So every officer in the United States right now has to make the decision: do I think Trump is more likely to send me to the jail, or do I think the Democrats are more likely to send me to the jail? That's how you get a civil war, guys. Sorry, I don't want to be hyperbolic again. I know the Nothing Ever Happens bros are screaming. I know, Tim Pool, Civil War, it's all coming. But where do we go from here? They're literally telling the military, if you follow the orders of the commander-in-chief, we'll put you in jail. So what's the military supposed to do, except they have to declare loyalty not to the United States, but to one side or the other? That's all this does. This forces a decision. Are you for the Trump regime, or are you for whatever next, the Kamala Harris, I don't know, AOC, whatever nightmare the left comes up with? Are you in that part of the regime? That's it. We are no longer one government. If you serve Sulla, then you will be taken out by Marius. If you serve Marius, you will be taken out by Sulla. If you serve Julius Caesar, you will be taken out. Sorry, I'm suddenly blanking on Roman generals here. By Pompey. If you serve Pompey, you'll be taken out by Caesar. There are no neutral sides. This is and it's literally, okay, if you don't solve this problem, the entire country has to come apart, because here are some other threats being thrown around. So as I told you, you probably have heard about this, Pete Hegseth striking these Venezuelan narco terror boats. Now, I know people have a lot of opinions on that. Some people say, oh, well, they all want to go to war in Venezuela, and Venezuela opposes Israel. And so by the transitive property, it's all Israel. Donald Trump's going to war with Venezuela on behalf of Israel. I don't know. I don't know any of that stuff. I kind of doubt that's the motivation, but that's not the point here. The point is that Pete Hegseth has ordered these strikes on these narco terrorist boats. I think that's perfectly fine. If you're bringing drugs into my country before you get to my country, I think we should be able to shoot you. I don't care. You're not. I don't think you get some kind of trial. I don't think we need a police action and just blow you up. But assuming that that's the story and that's the real thing happening. Either way, however you feel about the issue itself, the point is that we have multiple people here. We've got this guy is a progressive YouTuber with over 1 million followers. He says we're putting these guys in jail as soon as this is over. We've got a guy who is another large leftist voice, a congressman for Virginia, says that he's planning to send these people to jail. In his tweets, I grabbed the wrong tweet. I'm sorry. I thought I had the other one. There's another one where he says we're going to send you to the jail at the end of this. The point is that the Democrats are openly threatening to arrest Trump officials as soon as this is all over. As soon as Trump is out of office, we're coming after all of you. You're all going to jail. Well, what does that mean? Well, this is the scenario Caesar was in. Julius Caesar stopped campaigning in Gaul, give up power, and come back here and face retribution. We're going to get rid of you politically. We hate you politically. So we are going to charge you with crimes as soon as you come back, as soon as you give up power. Well, what was the only choice left to Caesar? To cross the Rubicon. You're going to kill me? You're going to throw me in jail? You're going to try me as soon as I come without an army? Then I come with an army. The minute I give up power, Me and my guys are all going to jail. Well, then I'm never giving up power, dictator for life. These are the choices that they're forcing. There aren't other options. There aren't other paths that we can go down if they continue to do this. We are at the tipping point. They are pushing sedition on behalf of the military, treason. They are pushing loyalty to specific political parties and specific factions of the regime, or you go to jail. To the guys with guns. That's how things get real bad, real quick. And we are there. Now, I know that we are more docile people than we have been before. The idea that things are just going to pop off right away is probably incorrect. This will continue to be a slow drift in the wrong direction, but ever accelerating. But again, whether we approach the edge of the cliff at 100 miles an hour or 1,000, eventually we get to the edge of the cliff. And we are heading the direction of the cliff. There is just no arguing that. You might say, oh, it'll be a long time before we get to the cliff, or we're going to be at the cliff tomorrow. But we are inexorably heading towards the cliff. If we do not make serious changes to what is happening right now, it's going to be real bad, because we are seeing both sedition being sown inside the armed forces, threatening of administration officials that they will go to jail as soon as they leave power, alongside the open encouragement of demographic replacement in the United States for the express purpose of taking over the political system and ensuring that no Republican can ever hold power again. While knowingly importing people who are dangerous and possibly will become terrorists, who have already killed National Guardsmen, who are planning to blow up buildings in Texas. That's where we're at. Something's got to give, man. Something's got to give. And again, as much as I think the Trump administration has been doing a much better job than any other administration in my lifetime, I'm sorry to say, you got to step it up. You got to. Again, you're doing a great job compared to others, but unfortunately, you don't get to just be graded on the curve here. The only option is excellence and victory. Everything else will cost us everything. The hour is too late. All the easy decisions are behind us. All the off-ramps are behind us. So the option is complete and total victory, or complete and utter decimation. Because the Democrats, I promise you, they will make good on this stuff. They're not lying when they say they're going to put you in jail. They don't chant lock her up and then not follow through, as Donald Trump learned. They failed, but they tried in a way Donald Trump never did to criminalize their opponents. And at some point, they will succeed. So you got to figure out the type of politics we are involved in has shifted radically. The patty cake, debate corner version of politics is gone. This is what I've been trying to tell guys like Joel Berry. This is what I've been trying to tell guys like James Lindsay. This is what I've been trying to tell guys like Seth Dillon. This is what I've been trying to tell guys who think that they can just make a good argument and talk about our shared values and solve this problem. No, the nature of politics has shifted. It is existential. You win this, or they put you in jail at best. That's the best outcome. If we lose. So we can't lose. That's all there is to it. We have to win. So we will. This is not about blackpilling, guys. I want to make this clear. No blackpilling here. This is the we got to make this happen stream. This is we have to take it seriously stream. This is the grab you by the lapel and shake you and smack you until you take it seriously stream. This is not about blackpilling, but this is about laying out where we are in the starkest reality so we understand where we have to go. Because when you have Democrats who are openly encouraging the ethnic replacement of Americans so that they can control the political system, while they also openly encourage military members to commit treasonous acts, while they also openly basically celebrate the shooting of Charlie Kirk and National Guardsmen because they really had it coming ultimately. Like, when we're in that place, things are very bad. And we have to take them very seriously. We can win. We have to win. So we will win. But we have to fight. We cannot sit around and pretend like group chats are the most important thing in the world, that social media interviews on YouTube are the most important thing in the world. No, this is the most important thing. And no, we cannot walk and chew gum. We cannot do both. We obviously can't do either. So if we're going to focus on something, and we have to focus on something, we focus on this. The left is trying to replace and or kill and or jail you. We have to stop them. That's it. All right, guys, let me take a look at the questions of the day real quick. We got a few stacking up. Arthur Human says, our interpreter was a decent enough fellow on deployment. Would I want him and his family to come to America? Never in a million years, not out of hatred, but from an understanding that this isn't a homeland, his homeland or culture. Yeah, right. I'm sure that there are nice people in Afghanistan, but that doesn't mean they should be here. In fact, I'll never forget a story one of my friends told me when he was on deployment in Afghanistan. He also had an interpreter, a guy he liked very well. This guy was in America, had been in America for I think several decades. He did not just come over after he had come to America, been part of American culture for decades, and then went back over to translate. But he, my friend said, "Hey, what happened here? What's going on?" And the translator said, "Oh, everyone of quality left years ago. There's no one left in Afghanistan who is gonna, be a good guy. Like, they would have left already if they could. The entire leadership class that could have raised Afghanistan out of the hellhole it is, to whatever extent that's possible, they're all gone. So anyone you get out of Afghanistan now is not going to be those people. It's going to be the worst of the worst. You have to stop." Wild Speaker says, colorblind egalitarianism killed Sarah Beckstrom. Can't argue with that in the slightest, man. It's a horrible thing, but that's exactly right. We couldn't say no to people who obviously shouldn't be in the country, and she's dead. She's dead on the altar of social justice. She's dead on the altar of mass immigration. She's dead on the altar of multiculturalism. It should never have happened, and she was sacrificed. Make no mistake about that. It was a human sacrifice to the gods of the left. Weird E. Curb says, give me a few random metal albums that I should check out. By the way, if you did a podcast where you just talked about metal music, that would be pretty sweet. Just saying. I've, of course, appeared on some people's channels to discuss metal. I've had a metal band like Judicator on the show. So occasionally we break into it. Maybe one day, just do a whole separate side podcast on that. But what albums should I throw out there? I'm really enjoying Wayfarer right now. If you want like Wayfarer and the new Death Heaven album, if you're looking for maybe some black metal, Sabaton has a new album out. It's not their greatest album of all time, but it's pretty good if you're looking for newer music. If you're looking for just something a little more obscure, not necessarily obscure to you, because I love them. You may have seen them on my feed, but guys like Savatage, guys like I'm trying to remember the doom metal band. I can think of all their album. Trouble is a fantastic one that you should check out. So just if you haven't looked into any of those artists, I would encourage you to do so. Manayud says, what did you guys think decolonization meant? Just vibes, papers, essays? The woke races communism is just a window dressing for burning down everything Westerners hold dear. They see joy in it. Yeah, again, I try to push this all the time for people to understand. Yes, they use Marxist language. Yes, some of them will even have some Marxist theory in behind the whole thing. But at the end of the day, it really is this ethnic resentment. It really is hatred of your people, your way of life. The theory, the abstract theory behind it is a nice way to hide what's really going on there. He also says, your universe has no meaning to them. They will not try to understand. They will be tired. They will be cold. They will make a fire with your beautiful oak door, Jean Rapsdale. And of course, this is Camp of the Saints, which is out in a new edition now. Used to be a book you couldn't get for $300-400, a real banned book, not the banned book that you can find in on Amazon for $10, or you can find in any Barnes and Noble in the bargain bin with 1,000 copies for $5. This is a real banned book, okay, and it is returned. So if you would like to read that, you can. And of course, it lays out a future that looks far too close what we are experiencing now. Jacob Zindel says, MIT study finds AI can already replace 11.7% of the U.S. workforce. How long before oligarch overlords realize they don't need mass immigration for the economy anymore. Well, I think they know that, right? And so the question is, why are they still doing it? And the answer is destabilization to control the population through the fracturing of the demos, right? Like that's the actual plan. Now, don't get me wrong, they can still profit off of cheap labor for a while. And honestly, they would burn the country down for 10 more years of cheap labor. So when they don't need it, they don't even care. Like, oh yeah, in 10 years, we won't need any of this labor, but whatever, right? We can make more money now. So even though it's a short-sighted thing, they'll still do it. And this is something we need to recognize about capitalism, okay? Capitalism needs specific boundaries. I am not someone who opposes capitalism. I think it is much better than communism or socialism. However, we need to understand that it has to be tied to serving the nation. And by the way, guys like Ricardo, like eminent theorists of economics, said the same thing. Like when they talked about the comparative advantage of free trade, they assumed that labor would stay fixed inside the nation, that the nations would still favor their own populations and their own well-being over money. So even in the examples of classical economic comparative advantage, they assumed that we wouldn't have this open borders labor, neoliberalism. So even if you agree with the kind of capitalism, Ricardo, all these guys, you can still recognize that that exists inside a specific context of the nation and a people, not this global idea that there should be no borders or boundaries to who comes into a country and where their money goes. Life of Brian says, who cares about the group chats? Who are you talking to? The Cancel Tucker Bros there with Mark Kelly. Why waste time? Acknowledge them anyway. Because they've train wrecked the conservative movement, man. I'm with you. I would rather not talk about it. These guys are ripping apart the Heritage Foundation. They're attacking people at ISI. They are going after the platforms of anyone who's talking about this stuff. They are obsessed with it. Again, I want to talk about this, and I am going to talk about this. You'll notice that this was 95% of the conversation, and I simply mentioned at the end, hey, this is what I've been trying to explain to you guys, that this is the kind of politics we have to deal with, and not the kind you're talking about, right? Like, so I've already made that case a million times, but I made it again for like 3 minutes of this, and the rest of the time we talked about what really mattered. So I'm with you. I would prefer not to deal with this stuff, but I can't pretend like these guys aren't running through and getting people canceled and destroying conservative institutions and hunting out MAGA faithful people to make sure that the next administration is not a JD Vance, but is some return to Mitt Romney or John McCain. If you want John McCain next cycle, then I guess you can just ignore these guys. Let them take over the party. I don't think we should. I don't know. It doesn't mean I want to spend all my time battling these guys, but I can't just pretend that they're going to go away. Lego says, doesn't Venezuela issue seem like theatrics and a distraction? Again, one of those scenarios where as long as it's maintained as some kind of strike on, drug running boats coming to the United States, it's fine. The minute it goes anywhere beyond that, the minute that we're talking about going to Venezuela, attacking them in any way, or doing something off the shores of the United States, yeah, then I have a huge problem. If these people are just blowing up, narco boats coming into the U.S., okay. The minute you're telling me we need regime change in Venezuela, nope, out, done, nope, not at all. So that's where I'm at with it. Again, people in part more nefarious motives behind the Trump administration and their pursuit of this. I don't know. I don't think so, but I'm not going to pretend like I speak with great authority on that issue. Ultimately, yeah, I think it is largely a distraction, but the reason it matters, once again, is it dovetails in with all these other issues, right? Yes, it starts with, Pete Hegseth, but the left has been trying to manipulate the military into betraying Trump for years. We saw them purge the military when Biden was in office, trying to get rid of all the Trump supporters. They eventually had to roll some of that back, but we see what's been happening here. They have been trying to gain control of the armed forces and make them loyal to one side of the aisle. So was the particular Venezuela issue the issue I want to spend time on? No, not necessarily. But if this is the issue they're using to create that wedge, well, then it matters. Not even the material issue itself, but the fact that they are attempting to leverage it that way. That's why it matters. All right, guys, it looks like that is all the questions for today. As always, appreciate you guys coming by and interacting. One of the best parts about this show is I get to speak with you after we have a guest or we'll get to talk about some of these issues. If it's your first time on this channel, make sure that you click subscribe. Make sure you click the bell notifications on YouTube so you know when we go live. If you want to get these broadcasts as podcasts, you need to subscribe to the Auron MacIntyre Show on your favorite podcast platform. And if you do, leave a rating or review so that it helps with the algorithm magic. Thank you so much for watching, guys. And as always, I will talk to you next time.